Good morning, everybody. BDF44 coming at you another video, fresh out of bed. I'm not even out of it, obviously, but yeah. So straight into it. I hear that there are two other suitors that may actually want to snatch Kyrie Irving from us: 76ers and the Mavericks. And I just read somewhere that the 76ers are actually not in it. So take that for what it's worth. That's all I was able to read in that regard. Makes sense. Dallas just lost Brunson. They need a second star to replace him, kind of give Luka Doncic that same dynamic. Kyrie Irving would exactly be that. He would be able to step in, play that role immediately, kind of do the same thing Brunson does in the way that Brunson does it. Attacking in the paint, being impossible to stop, getting into the lane, scoring efficiently, stretching the floor. Even though Brunson's game wasn't that, Kyrie would be able to do that better than him, obviously. Um, it would be an upgrade in a situation where Dallas doesn't expect to have an upgrade. Problem is not necessarily for their salary. Bringing in Kai at 36.7 or 37, whatever it is, would be a lot for Dallas. But I think at this point they could definitely afford it, given the fact that Jalen darted. So that would be a no-brainer if you're Dallas. If you can get him at a price that makes sense for you, I think he fits with Luka Doncic about as well as Jalen Brunson did. Um, yeah. So in a situation like that, I'd say their defense would take a hit a bit because of Kai's deficiencies on that end. But I don't think you care. Just like we don't care. I don't think you care if you're Dallas because you have a defensive infrastructure that should be able to support him. So that's why that fit makes sense. And as far as Philly's concerned, I'm not really sure what they're thinking at all, which is why I don't think this is real for them. I think the report of them being out makes more sense than them being in because they have James Harden. And James Harden was trying to get the hell away from Kyrie. That was something that we all understood. So unless they're trading him for James Harden, which I can't imagine the Brooklyn Nets would be trying to get James Harden back. Not under those circumstances. He got the hell out of there purposefully, intentionally. So no, you're not trading for him. Now maybe they'd send someone to a third party. Maybe this is a Tobias Harris type of thing. Maybe they move Tobias Harris. But then you have a situation where you got Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid. Now that's a great combination of people to have around Joel Embiid, but I'm not sure it necessarily fits. And so getting rid of Tobias Harris, in my opinion, could be considered a positive if you're trying to save salary. But in terms of trying to win now, I don't know you upgrade yourself by moving Tobias out and moving Kai in based on what your needs are as a team. So them being in on Kai, what is it? They're moving off of Tyrese Maxey. That's just not happening. Are they replacing James Harden with Kyrie Irving? I definitely do not see that either. So as far as that's concerned, the fit doesn't make any sense. The salary, in order to make the fit, would be weird. So the only way to make Kyrie make sense is to move multiple players and reinvent the entire starting lineup, in my opinion. As to which you would still want to keep Tyrese Maxey and, of course, Joel Embiid. I don't know that Kyrie Irving fits in between them at all. I don't. Tyrese Maxey is going to be a good 2. I think he's a better 1. And I think he's really, really good with the ball in his hands. And I think Joel Embiid, everything obviously centers around him. So when does Kai get to be Kai? When does, James Harden, his situation, he's not going to be James Harden that we know him to be anymore. He's going to be looking to facilitate and kind of just build upon the role that he had last year. I expect him to try to average over 7-8 assists a game and have big assists every night with average scoring, maybe somewhere within the 12 to 20 range on most nights. And then, of course, you're going to get that 30-point game out of him. You're going to even probably get a 40-point game out of him because he's James Harden. He's going to snap into it here and there, maybe even snap into it for a while. But I think what you should expect from him is big assists, mostly. He's going to glue the team together no matter what's going on. He's going to do it at a Hall of Fame level, in my opinion. He's going to turn into one of the best point guards in the game in terms of facilitators. Point guards, again, Tyrese is going to play that, but we know what I'm trying to say. I think ultimately he's going to be one of the most important facilitators in basketball going forward because that's what he's going to transition into being. And he's going to be a damn good one. See, that's the thing. People are worried about James Harden keeping his value up. Don't. Why? Because when he learns his speed and learns his body once again, he's going to turn into a surgeon in a different way. Thing I know about James Harden, and I stress this and I mean this, James Harden is a scientist. James Harden made an entire career out of conning the system, basically, by being able to draw fouls in ways that no one else could. Now, granted, his athleticism, his size allowed him to have physical uh, attributes that let him get to the lane, and speed that would let him get to the lane as easily as he wanted to. Rhythm and his strength in his legs would allow him to get shots off and keep him up. And of course, a system of Mike D'Antoni in Houston that allowed him to take as many shots as he wanted. So that situation was unique, and he was in it for so long that we thought that was actually his natural way. But to be honest with you, he just morphed into that because the Houston Rockets gave him the opportunity to morph into it. In OKC, as I mentioned many times lately since we talked about Kevin Durant and him, he was a facilitator there. That was his initial first role. And he facilitated a lot for the OKC Thunder, kept everything going for them, and didn't look to score as much off of their bench. I think that role is the best role for him on the Philadelphia 76ers, minus the bench part because he's starting. But facilitating strictly, and then whatever floor spacing duties he could provide with his three-point shooting should probably be looked to be used. His catch and shoot ability should be exploited a bit more, in my opinion. Let him be off the ball in catch and shoot situations, running off of curls, taking advantage of his hyper shooting and scoring ability. If he could play more so off the ball than he ever has before, which I don't think should be a problem for James Harden, and they run some actions, pick and roll with him and Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, they run that enough times, they're not going to be stopped. They're not going to be stopped. It's going to be too much. As long as you keep Joel healthy, it's going to be a lot to deal with. If I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm not necessarily looking to retool with one player. I'm looking to turn Tobias Harris at about 3 of them and keep somebody defensive on the floor with Tobias Harris. For me, type of player I want them to have, it's like a Jonathan Isaac. Someone who's not necessarily looking for his own shot, but somebody who come in at all times. It'd be wingy, defensive, long, maybe provide some scoring, lob threat type stuff, but mostly just be athletic on the wing, defending the hell out of everybody. That's what I want for the Philadelphia 76ers. That's what they were lacking. Once they found themselves putting players on the floor that were lacking athleticism, they had real issues. And while they could get away with that because Joel Embiid is a centerpiece that's going to make that go away, you're going to need more insurance for him going forward, especially without an adequate backup, for which I don't think they added to their situation at all just yet. Could still very well be possible. There's still some guys out there they could look at, but I think that's going to be an emphasis for them. They're going to have to find some wing defensive help. Now I know they brought in DeAnthony Melton, so that means they probably could afford to shave off a guard in theory. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they replace somebody. I'm not sure, but given the fact that they had depth issues, probably not. Ignore that. I think at the end of the day, I like Philadelphia this year. I didn't like them as much last year, but after getting a chance to really see what Joel Embiid could be hurt when he played the way he played against the Toronto Raptors with a messed up eye and a messed up hand, and he still managed to win that series. That was when I truly became a believer in what everybody else sees in him. It's like, okay, that's an unstoppable force. Even half of him is too much for most. All you got to do is surround him with adequate players, and you're going to win. Philadelphia has yet to do that, to be completely honest with you. They've tried and they've spent a lot of money, but they haven't put nothing together for him that would actually put him in a position to really succeed. It's time to do that. Simple as that. Going after James Harden, I didn't see the vision, but now I do. When they picked up James Harden, they understood that there was a good chance, and this is just me speculating, I don't know this to be the case. I think they understood it was a good chance that his relationship with Daryl Morey would help them. It would help them. Even if they got him at a ridiculous price in trade, once they acquired him, they would be able to make deals with him because of that personal relationship he had with Daryl. Daryl, if the reports are true, basically was intentionally trying to get James Harden to leave the Nets and come to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, Daryl's not going to be that close to James Harden and misevaluate his talent. The only reason why he would pay full price for James Harden is because he knew he would be able to work him into the equation once he got him. The GM is the last person who's about to make things hard for himself, especially one who is as knowledgeable and as talented as Daryl Morey. Now, granted, he doesn't have a championship, and I can argue it's because he overthinks himself and tries stuff that he doesn't necessarily need to try. Your teams be good enough. You just be trying to do too much after that. Maybe that's not his fault. Maybe that's on the ownership. But I think Houston, was fine with Clint Capella and them. They didn't need to do anything. They probably should have kept the team together and maybe retooled with some athleticism or something. But instead, they blew it up, traded the center, did some small stuff, and it never worked out again. I think this is a different situation. I think maybe there's a chance, if I'm speculating further, Daryl Morey didn't necessarily want to do it that way, and that's why he wants to do it again with James Harden to get it right without Tillman Fertitta a part of it in Philadelphia. So now they got a chance they got him back in Philadelphia, and suddenly, by mistake, they weren't able to properly sign him upon arrival. A mistake? You trying to tell me they accidentally didn't put in the paperwork for him to be able to sign his extension? Oh, so it was just a mistake, right? Now I look at how things have played out. No, that wasn't no mistake. That was strategic. They never had intentions of him doing that. They wanted to get him re-signed at a different price that they had already agreed upon before he even got there. That wasn't no mistake. He never intended for it to go that way. They just needed to look like a mistake, in my speculation. He came there with every intention of giving him a massive pay cut to some degree. Now, I don't know what that pay cut's going to be because he hasn't signed it yet. And that's the point. They're trying to figure that out. But I don't think they trade him because I think he's the key to what it is that Daryl's doing. He's the key to it. Being able to pull him in and have him in your back pocket, so to speak. Being willing to help you flexibility-wise build a team over the next several years. If James Harden has already agreed to help Daryl Morey by taking a certain level of a pay cut that would be perfect for him to strategically put together this team, you could be looking at something very special happening in Philadelphia. Now, granted, I do like to pick up a PJ Tucker, even though they may have paid him a little more than you want to see them pay him $10 million a year at this stage in his career. Especially if you don't put together a championship caliber team. Now you just got him stuck to a team and that's not what PJ's for in this league at this stage. You got to be on the champion caliber squad. So I think it's reasonable to think that the Philadelphia 76ers are going to make another move of some sort. After all that I've concluded, I just think it's time for them to try to retool. I think Tobias Harris is the key because he played so well last year. His contract is so mature. And it's probably wise to move on from it now. You given his injury history historically, even though he's not really injury prone at all. Historically, he started his career off injury prone. He did. First 4 or 5 years, he was having issues staying on the ground, in the floor. And I think this is why you sell high. Now he's had a couple years where he's been really, really, really healthy. He played excellent defense in the playoffs. Probably played the best basketball we've seen him play in his career. He's coming off of that right now. This is the time to trade him. This is exactly when you trade him. You don't trade him when he gets over the hump and starts slumping a little bit, or maybe his numbers go down, or maybe the team doesn't have as good of a playoff series with him involved. No, that's not when you get rid of a contract that you consider not so great of a contract. You get rid of that contract when it's at its highest peak. This is right now. So I think they need to trade Tobias Harris right now, somewhere, anywhere, I don't know, whatever makes sense, and retool and get themselves even further depth. Find that wingy Jonathan Isaac type of dude and get him in place for Tobias Harris at a more reasonable price for you. That's what I would try to do. If that's such a piece exists, I would try to do that. I really like Tobias, but I would like Tobias even more if he were 3 people for what they look like last playoffs. So if he were at a more affordable price for what it is that they're doing, of course this is not an addition by subtraction. I'm not saying you're about to get better by doing this. I just think when you look at his piece, he's how you get better without moving on from Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and of course James Harden. That's how you get better. If you don't do that, your team's going to stay looking pretty much the way it is right now, and it's not enough. It's not good enough. So, yeah. Rumors were that Joel Embiid wanted to trade James Harden for Kevin Durant, but I think that was the point of me getting on here letting y'all know what I think of that. I don't believe that Daryl Morey would actually do that at all, based on everything that we just said. No, he's not going to do that. Now, on normal circumstances, I think it would be reasonable for him to do that, but not given the fact that they basically have agreed to work together to build this team. Nah, that's not happening. that's James will be there next year. If my tea leaves, what I'm reading is the case, that's what to expect. So yeah, we'll see what Philly wants to do, man. They didn't fire Doc Rivers. They definitely didn't do that. That was something that people thought may or may not do. Um, and they've been kind of quiet, with the exception of the Melton trade and picking PJ Tucker up. I haven't seen them do enough to make me feel like they're gonna really retool in a way that makes Joel happy, and that's unacceptable. That's simply unacceptable. They gotta do some more for him right now, and I think that's just kind of that goes without saying at this point, and I believe they will. You got Daryl Morey in place. I think there's a good chance he's just waiting to see what happens with Kyrie and KD, just like the rest of us, and you will proceed to see him do something, whether it be signing somebody else or making a move. I just don't think Philly would be done by any stretch of the imagination. Not at all. I think they are good as any candidate to retool in some of these areas with certain players, especially with that Tobias Harris and a couple picks that they may have available. I don't know exactly what they would do, because a lot of the players that are available, hot shot players, really are guards. And like I said, they got that. But if there's a forward that comes up, if there's somebody, a center that may, not center, no, a forward that comes up, I think they could be in play for it. So we're going to keep our eyes open there. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say, man. I guess I'll call this a Philadelphia 76er conversation. You know me, I never know what to name these. So yeah, that's pretty much where we at with that, man. I think all in all, the Philadelphia team is in a place where you have what you need as a core. Now it's just about retooling around them. Once you have Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid in place, that's your duo. You got a duo for the next 10 years. Now, what you do with that duo ultimately will determine how happy they be and whether or not you're able to keep them for 10 years. But right now, I hope Philly doesn't overthink this, because they got what they need to build around properly. Just got to do it now. So that's what I got, man. BDF 44. Thank y'all for watching.